F1.
Red flag. Red flag's to slow down.
What? The checkered flag is waiting.
I can see our Chequered Flag podcast being quite spicy.
5 Live's Chequered Flag podcast.
It's Silverstone, it's the home of motorsport, and it's the British Grand Prix this weekend. For 4 of the drivers on the grid, it'll be their home Grand Prix. And for Sir Lewis Hamilton, it'll be his 17th race in front of the home crowd. He sits down with Jennie for a proper and wide-ranging chat. I'm Rosanna Tennant, and this is 5 Live Formula One. Yes, Jennie Gow's back in the F1 paddock and has done her first interview since her shocking stroke back at New Year. The interview with Lewis Hamilton is a really interesting one, so we'll hear that a little bit later on. And I get the chance to talk to Jennie to find out how she's doing. That's all coming up on our preview for the British Grand Prix. But first, let me set the scene for you. We're in the F1 paddock at Silverstone, the home of British motorsport, and I'm so thrilled to say that for the next 25 minutes or so, I'll be joined by former F1 driver Jolyon Palmer, who's raced here. Fans are going to be flocking here in their hundreds of thousands, Jolyon.
To see me?
To see you, exactly. They've heard you're on the billing. They love it. Do you love it here?
I do. It's one of the great events in British sport and in the Formula One calendar, motorsport world. It could be the biggest attended Formula One race ever, with looking at the ticket sales for the weekend coming up. 450,000 people expected. So it's huge. The track is amazing. The atmosphere is always brilliant. We're lucky to have some standout British drivers in the field. And it's always fun to come to Silverstone.
Why is it fun to drive? We've got these incredible names. It's one of the few circuits on the calendar that we actually refer to the turns and corners by their original names. Does that add to the experience? I don't know. It's a bit more traditional, isn't it, here?
Well, exactly. It just shows the traditional nature of the circuit. And Formula One's boomed in recent times. And actually, a lot of the newer fans have no idea. If you start talking about Copse Corner or Maggots and Beckett's, they just think you're saying weird words. But they are just iconic corner names around here. And steeped in history, track's been around for decades. There's been a change 12 years ago that's added a load of overtaking. But it kept the character of the old place. Now we've got fast corners, which is exhilarating to drive, and good braking zones, chance to overtake. It's the perfect mix.
Yeah, I know those words make me think of sort of magic, a bit like Harry Potter. And I know you love a bit of Harry Potter, so maybe it's sort of, you Slytherins. There you go. Aren't you one?
I've got absolutely nothing to say to that.
We know you think
Maggots
you're
and
Gryffindor. So in Maggots and Beckett's, there you go. And I'll disappear just like that. The best thing about British summer is that you never know what weather you're going to get. We've had years here where it is scorchio out there and there are a few burnt shoulders and faces out and about. But this weekend it looks a little bit more mixed. How does that spice things up on a track like this?
It's the classic British weather, which you can always face here as well. So there's so much that goes into play, and it just feels like a weekend full of razzmatazz as well. I mean, the weather, rain or shine, it will be packed out. There's a film crew here this weekend, which is just something very different for Formula One as well. But it just shows again the boom of the sport, and yeah, such a huge crowd, so much glamour around. Brad Pitt strolling around the paddock as well. Yeah, it's pretty special, and rain or shine, everyone will have a great time, and hopefully it'll be a really classic race.
Jolyon, you've just casually mentioned a film crew and Brad Pitt strolling through the F1 paddock. For those of you that don't know, there is an amazing film set here, 2 garages mocked up to replicate a Formula One team. Brad Pitt is going to be playing a Formula One driver in a film that Lewis Hamilton is exec producer on. It's sort of Hollywood and Formula One colliding again, actually, because we had the Alpine deal a week or so ago with Ryan Reynolds buying a stake in Alpine. Now we've actually got Hollywood on site, proper.
It feels pretty weird, I'm not going to lie, it feels really weird. Because we're at the Grand Prix and we're all so focused on the sport, and yet there is this sort of film set that is now going on around us. So it's quite cool. I think you've got to look at it as really positive. There's going to be a film coming out, and they want to make it as realistic as they can to Formula One. So Brad Pitt, for all intents and purposes, will be lining up on the grid on Sunday, which is completely ridiculous.
It really is, isn't it? But this is the place to do it. British Home of Motorsport, or rather Home of Motorsport, to get the real feel for what it's like to be in a Formula One team if you're taking that to the big screens.
Exactly, and you want atmosphere. So if you want atmosphere, you want to come somewhere like where we are towards the bins right now in the paddock.
Bottles of champagne already being unloaded over the fence.
Let's go with that. We're on radio. But you want atmosphere. So there's a few places where you can go and really get it. But this track is middle of the season, peak of summer. Hopefully it will be. Well, in fact, I don't mind if it rains because it'll spice up the action. But It's one of the few places that everyone has a buzz for, not just the British drivers.
Yeah, lots to look forward to over the course of the weekend. Quite a few drivers and teams bringing upgrades to their cars this weekend, so plenty to watch out for. One of those is Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes team. Both he and George will have new bits and pieces on the car. And as I mentioned earlier on at the beginning of the show, Jennie, our colleague who has been away from the sport for several months, recovering from a shocking stroke, has sat down with Lewis Hamilton ahead of his home race to have a brilliant chat with him. Wide-ranging chat covering lots of topics. So let's hear from Jennie speaking to Lewis Hamilton.
Lewis, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure. So nice to see you.
It's nice to see you. This is the first time I've done an interview since I had a stroke. 6 months. So
This is the first one?
Yeah.
No way.
We thought we'd go in low key. Just a subtle interview.
Start low and then
It's nice that it's you though.
I appreciate
Because
that.
we've been doing this for like 11 or 12 years.
Yeah, it's a long time.
And I didn't think I'd be as nervous as I am, or as emotional. So if I cry, I'm sorry. But I couldn't miss Silverstone.
No, so when I heard you were coming, I was so happy.
Oh, that's nice.
I can't imagine what you've been through. So to see you here smiling and bringing your positive energy is inspiring.
I wanted to talk to you about that inspiration, because through the last 6 months of my recovery, I've tried to find inspiration and be an inspiration to other people going through this. But how do you cope with being such an inspiration to so many people? It must be, do you like that?
Well, I don't see it. So I don't wake up every day and think, hey, I'm an inspiration.
But you are.
Yeah, but what does that really truly mean? I think ultimately it's I like to think that it's kind of like how you show up, and so I don't feel any pressure. I just feel that each day is you have to really, really cherish every day that we have and try to utilize it to be, as much as you can, be positive and be an uplifting beam of light or energy to the people that you engage with, right? And so I just try to do that as much as I can. Yesterday I didn't have a good day at all, and I don't think I was as hard as I was not feeling good, and I don't think I was uplifting to any of the people around me. So in that scenario, I was like, I got to get out of here. Don't want to bring others down, but I don't feel like it's a responsibility or anything. And as I said, I don't ever notice it. So I'm oblivious to it, really.
Is today a good day?
Today, yeah, I slept good last night, and I got Roscoe with me. So
I saw the pictures of him.
Yeah,
he's big now. He must be heavy to carry.
He actually lost weight when I took him plant-based. He actually lost, I think, 10 pounds or something like that. So, but he's still a unit, He's a proper English bully.
I love that. Just thinking of the fans, they always love you coming here. You love being around them. Thinking back to the times when you've won here, it's such a good scene. Does that keep you coming back to F1 in general? That feeling of doing it for the fans?
Yeah, it's definitely a big element, and a part of that. Coming to the British Grand Prix it's just, I've been to see other sporting events, but there's none of them come close to this one. And when you have that support, I remember growing up in Petrie Way, I never ever dreamed of having people wearing a cap of mine or supporting me. And I always thought I'd just have my parents. Just as I know it's always going to be my mum and my dad. So to see that and experience it, and really, it takes time to learn to fully be able to embrace it, because it's not easy when you're there's so much energy, and it's super overwhelming when you're on stage or when you're in front of a crowd. And I think probably when I was younger, there were days where I wouldn't know if I truly felt like I deserve it. And that's just a part of my own issues growing up. And so learning to be able to embrace it and then just pull that in and pull them around you and go on that journey with them. When I've won the Grand Prix here, really feeling like people on the edge of their seats, whether it's at home or whether it's here, supporting, kept me going. So
I tell you what, if you could put on a great show with Fernando and with Max and all the people that feed in and George, it would be amazing, wouldn't it? In front of this, but it's so hard now to do anything to compete with Max.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's the issue for a long, long time within our sport, right? We had, there's always large chunks of dominance. Like I had it, and I was really, really fortunate to have it here with this team. Michael had it, Seb had it. Now it's Max's period. There's no telling how long that would be, whether we get the car on the right track and can fight them back next year, or Ferrari can, or whether it will be us next or Ferrari next or Red Bull next. But that's why I've been saying just recently, like even when we were dominant, the best years were when we were fighting, when we had the close battle with Red Bull, when we had the close battle with Ferrari. On some of the other times where the gap was a little bit bigger, that wasn't really the most fulfilling period of time, but it's nothing we can do about it. We just did a better job. And that's where Max is, ultimately him and his team have just done a better job than everybody else. And you cannot take it away from them. But as a sport, we have to have a conversation about how we can set it up to be better for the future. So we have tighter races, the hope, if possible, the pack is closer. And we have like close battles between Max, like a Red Bull and a Ferrari and a Mercedes and an Aston. That would be epic. So that's my dream, because that's where I grew up racing karts, and it was wheel-to-wheel close battling. So we hope, I don't dream of having a dominant period ever again in for myself, like winning multiple championships in a row. But I hope that the hope would be so you can have you would be in the battle at least, and amongst God knows how many. Because
that's got to be the thing that excites you and drives you, that battle.
Well, the best races are when you start from the back, where you're in Brazil and you're challenged and you get to race with all the other drivers, and then it's really about those small decisions you take on track that really make that difference. And so that's what I dream of all the time.
So what is your drive? What's your motivation now that you're not in the fight for a world championship title this year?
It's a very, when we started, whenever you start the year, you come into the season with that mentality, okay, I'm going to be fighting for a championship. And then you got to the first test, and that's where you find out where the chips lie. And then you just have to recalibrate your goals. And for us, it's developing, it's putting together as a team, it's trying to be a better teammate, it's trying to see if I can steer this ship into the back to its winning ways, and then on the side thing, just trying to be as good a human as I can be each day, and try to grow, and do positive things. And so one of the things that keeps me going is I've got Mission 44, and I've got over 50 kids here this weekend from different backgrounds that hopefully will, after seeing this, will be inspired to become engineers or something like that in future. So that stuff keeps me going.
How important is it for you to be a leader within Mercedes and to drive, as you say, that momentum forward?
Well, I don't consider myself a leader within the team. I'm a part of, I think I honestly feel like everyone has an equally important role. So I generally feel like a link in the chain. But I want to make sure my link is as powerful as strong as it can be. So that whichever link you're connected to can also be strong, and the knock-on effect. And ultimately, I tried to be the best I can be within the team in terms of how to deliver, both on and off track. So, it's really cool to be a part of this brand. They signed me when I was 13, Mercedes. So, you go to Stuttgart and see the history, and there's plenty of my cars now as a part of the evolution of their history. And long after I'm gone, I'll still be a part of Mercedes. So that's cool.
it's been really strange watching from afar and not traveling with everyone and not being part of F1, I suppose, for the last 6 months. But I've noticed on socials, you seem a lot freer, a lot maybe happier. I don't know. That's just my perception of it. Are you? Do you feel in a good place?
Yeah, definitely. I think I started out the year really, really well. I had New Year's in Antarctica with a really incredible group of people. Actually, they're all coming here this weekend for their first race, which is awesome. Had this incredible retreat in January, which is like a health retreat.
I think I could have done with that.
Yeah, and then I've generally been in a really good place, and I didn't drink for like 5 months. Also, so I didn't drink on New Year's for 5 months into the year. And I've only had 2 occasions, but I don't really drink much anyways. But I'd stop in again. I've generally been in a really good place. I think the car is like, you turn up with excitement to be able to fight, and naturally we want to win. So for sure, each time you get in the car and you're up against the wall where you can't quite extract all of what you feel inside, that's difficult. But you know, I think these are the years that really, really build you. And so it's been character building last year and this year, and I know that what I'm preparing myself for is when they finally get the car together. When we do, I'll be ready. And so that's what I'm trying to prepare myself for.
So do you think that 8th world title is there? Is it still the dream?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And you know, there's days where you're like, oh God, I can't know if I can keep going. And those are the days that you're just tired from traveling, you know, like it's a lot of travel. I think after Montreal, we went New York to Montreal, Montreal to Paris, Paris to Spain, Spain to Germany, Germany to London, London to Austria, you know, so maybe that was a part of reflecting of the weekend, maybe, who knows, but yeah, but I'm still really, really enjoying that part, and of course that is the goal.
24 races now is crazy. What do you think?
The weekends are too long. It's still the 4 days that we've always had, right? But they're really, like if you look at the last race, for example, like your meeting starts at 11 and then it goes, and then the rest of the day is long, but they could make it into a 3-day weekend. And I think ultimately that's, if we're talking about sustainability, I think that's probably a direction that we need to be pushing towards. That gives people 24 days back in their lives with their families. And so, yeah, I don't mind more races, but let's shorten the weekends, nice and sweet. Let's get in and race. You know?
I knew you'd say as long as we're racing, it's fine.
No media day.
Oh, come on. This is the best bit.
Maybe just one interview, just maybe this one, the most important one.
Okay, I like that. Just thinking about this weekend in particular, obviously Brad Pitt's here for filming and you're exec producer on that.
Yeah.
How is it having that big movie thing going on in the background?
I've not thought about it a huge amount. I've not been to the garage yet, but I did have some questions in the press conference, and the realization that it's been a lot of work from the moment of like the birth of the discussion to realizing we got Brad Pitt on board, the work that we've been doing, God knows how many times we've read the script, and the work that we've been doing to try and make it great. To finally see us now starting, it's like, it's nerve-wracking. It's like, wow, it's happening. And just to think that at the end of this journey, we'll have a movie and we'll be at a premiere. And that'll be the first time I've been a part of that. So I feel very honored to be a part of it. And I'm very passionate to try, and really, really want to show particularly new people, but show the world just how great the sport it really is. The sport that we've all grown to love over time. And I really, really hope that I can keep that authenticity and excitement in it.
And just one more about the protesters. Obviously, you've spoken out about the Just Stop Oil protesters and that you welcome them, but with some care, I think, or cautiousness about that. What are you saying to the protesters? What's your message, I suppose?
Yeah, well, firstly, I stand with. I think we're fighting for the same cause, and I fully am in support of some of what the protesters were at least protesting last year. I think from my perspective, when I came around the corner and saw human beings on the track, it's terrifying. You know, like the last thing you ever want to do is put someone else in danger or in harm's way. So all I'd ever ask is just to please have that respect that we don't want to put them at risk, and we don't want them to put us at risk or anyone else, you know, marshals, for example. But I'm in full support. Like if there is a protest this weekend, yeah, we need to spark conversation. We need to continue to keep the pressure on for organizations, including this one, to continue to push, you know, for example, we're going to sustainable fuels in 2026, but the companies picturing us, for example, have sustainable fuels now and are ready to go now. But we're going to wait a couple of years, you know, like, so we just have to continue to push. We can't, it needs to happen now and happen faster. And we've got to really continue with a lot of great work's being done here, but we've got to continue to push more. It's never going to be enough. And ultimately it's not about being perfect as well. It's just, we've got to keep the conversation going. So I just hope if people do come, it's a peaceful protest, and I'm in support of that.
Thank you so much for
Pleasure.
your time.
Thank you.
I hope you have a really good weekend.
Thank you. Praying.
That was Lewis Hamilton speaking to Jennie, and I'm thrilled to say Jennie's still here in the F1 paddock with us. Jennie, it is fabulous to see you. I have to say my just heart lit up and face lit up when I saw you. It's lovely to have you back in the F1 paddock. How are you?
It's so nice to be here. I have to say, it's taken 6 months to get to a point where I felt like I could come back. And I just thought, you know, low-key, go into the paddock, do a couple of hours, go back. But you come into the paddock and you're kind of a wave of emotion and gratitude and friends, and everyone just comes over and they're so kind. And Lewis was amazing. So I think I'm doing okay. But the problem is, I'm really tired, and you get really tired after a stroke. So the recovery was come in, do the Lewis interview, and now I'm like, I'm ready to sleep. So I might go and have a sleep.
But that's important, isn't it? Sleep is so important with the recovery, and it's important to know that you've done what you came to do and you can now go home. But we hopefully will see you back another time.
Yeah, this is definitely like a little step. My speech isn't quite the way I want it to be. It isn't quite normal. But it gets me by enough to be understood. And if I think where I was 6 months ago, which was basically I had no voice, I've come a long way.
I can't tell you how nice it is to have a conversation with you. It's just the best.
I don't know if my conversations and chat have any sense at all to them.
I think yours have improved and mine got worse. So there we go. You sat down with Lewis Hamilton, a lovely chat with him. Were you nervous doing that interview?
I was so nervous. I was nervous I was going to cry, because I cry at everything at the minute. So my main objective, go in, be able to find my words, because I suffer from this thing called aphasia, which means you can't find your words like I normally would. And so I really wanted to find my words, not cry, and just have a nice chat with him, have a catch up. We don't get to speak to him very often, and he doesn't get time to speak to people very often in a longer form. So it was just so nice to sit there and chat to someone that I've known for 12 years and catch up.
So nice. And also I know that you've been following the Formula One season this year. Was it nice to sit down with him and have a chat about what's gone on this year? Because it's been a bit tricky for him, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think he's quite open about the fact that he'd love to be driving at the front again, and that he'd love for F1 to be a better spectacle. And, you know, his rivalry with Fernando and George and all of the people around him has been amazing to watch this year. And we've seen some great battles. It's just such a shame that at the front, you've got a team and a driver who are in the form of their lives, who have come together and taken the mantle over from Lewis and are dominating the sport wholeheartedly. So he was very honest about that, wasn't he? And saying that he knows that they were dominant for a while, but wouldn't it be nice if everyone could fight everyone?
Wouldn't it? Well, Jennie, honestly, it has just been the best seeing you in the Formula One paddock. Can't wait for you to be back here. It's so nice actually interviewing you as well, because we've never been in this.
Weird.
I know. I've been standing here looking into your eyes just thinking, this is amazing, because we've never done an interview together. We've often stood next to each other in the media pen, but to actually be catching up with you and, as I say, having a conversation has just been the best.
Do you know what? I've missed the people in the paddock, but I've missed everyone at home and trying to relay what's happening in the paddock, which was our job. And I just hope that everyone can enjoy Silverstone in this weekend, because, okay, it might be inevitability that Max wins, but maybe, just maybe, something else will happen and we can get some drama and everyone at home really enjoys their summer of sport.
Exactly, loads going on, the summer of sport. As you say, Silverstone often shakes things up, so maybe we're in for a bit of a surprise this weekend. Jennie, I'm going to let you head off, because I know
Can I go to sleep?
You can go to sleep, you can do whatever you need to do, as long as you do what you need to do to get back and be with us all in the F1 paddock again quickly.
Thank you.
As Jennie heads off, I'm joined again by Jolien. We've just moved up the paddock to outside Alpine. Jo, it's so good to catch up with Jennie again. So nice to actually have her back in the F1 paddock, isn't it?
Oh, it's terrific, yeah. Obviously a real shock for everyone to hear her news over the winter. And she's had a time away. I think she was very excited to get back in the paddock and back in with a bang, seeing Lewis Hamilton today. Absolutely,
an amazing sit-down chat with him. We spoke a little bit with Jennie about what he'd said, but there's so much to unpick from that interview. I think the biggest thing I took away was that he's still hungry to go for that 8th world title. Did you ever doubt that? Have you doubted his hunger over the course of the last 18 months?
I don't think so, because he wouldn't be still here if he wasn't aiming for that. If you've got 7 in the bag and you're in the twilight years, you could say, of his career, why else is he here if he's not motivated to try and win another championship? He's not here to mess around for podiums and best of the rest and maybe a win. This is Lewis Hamilton we're talking about. Of course he wants to win a title. He just needs desperately a car that can give him that chance again.
And what do you reckon then, these upgrades that everyone's going ooh and ah about for this weekend? They often bring them to Silverstone and sometimes go pretty well here at Silverstone when they're in full song. Do you think it can help them come back? Because I think there was a little bit of a false dawn in Barcelona, perhaps.
Yeah, they had a chance in Barcelona, had double podium, and then have had a couple of races where they've not been able to take advantage of it. But I think they'll be back here. Lewis is so good around this circuit. He's won countless times, nearly won out of the Ashes last year as well. So he's going to be a threat. The upgrades hopefully will give him a bit of a helping hand towards the front. But it's a sort of weird place sometimes, Silverstone, where you think you're expecting a easy result for the championship leader, and things happen. And I don't even know why. But there's just something in the air when you've got the atmosphere up, the crowd in, there's some magic around. And we've seen even Lewis Hamilton in his dominant Mercedes days having some thrilling wet races, but also even finishing on 3 wheels in the dry. Somehow things happen. It's tough on the tyres, the brakes, the cars, all the wheel-to-wheel action that you get, the weather, and he will be a man to take advantage if there's any opportunity, no doubt.
Yeah, Lewis has done it all here. He was also talking about that 24-race calendar that's been announced this week by Formula One. He's up for that many races, but he wants it shortened. As a driver, can you empathise with that? And would you have been on board with 24 races? It's quite a lot, isn't it?
No, it's a lot of races. So I had 21 when I was racing in 16. And I was quite exhausted by the end of the season. So the drivers do get looked after well. You know, they'll be flying around in first class or staying in 5-star hotels, being chauffeur driven.
Just like you are still, actually.
Yeah, I wish. I have come down with a crash.
You've been driving me around in Austria. That was
I
nice
became the chauffeur. Yeah, exactly. How the mighty have fallen. But no, they do. You know, on the face of it, have it good. But they've also got heaps of pressure. They turn up, and their weekends when they arrive to the track, they are so full on. Not only they got pressure, but they got meetings everywhere. They got fan engagements, PR appearances every day at the circuit. So it's pretty relentless, and you kind of loved the job. Obviously, that's why they're all here, and I loved it as well. But you do quite need some weekends off. It's such a long season. But hey, it's the way we're going, and they're going to have to get on board with it. I think if they do, then a 3-day weekend at least gives them an extra day in between to collect their thoughts and get away from what is quite a fishbowl environment.
Yeah, it is fast and unrelenting at the moment, even in 2023. I mean, only a few days ago we were in Austria. Just to wrap up what happened in Austria with those track limits infringements, I know you're probably going to roll your eyes having to talk about track limits again. Almost pushing it forward to this weekend. Are we going to see anything like that here at Silverstone, or does the circuit not lend itself to that?
I was really hoping we'd get away without even speaking about it, to be honest. It was the bane of our lives in Austria last week. But I fear we might have a couple of corners where it could be. There's Copse Corner, Stowe Corner and Club, right-handers in the second half of the lap that traditionally you have been able to go over a little bit. It'll be interesting to see, first of all, how they're policed. Can the cars run speed and take the gain by going off the track? And if they can, I mean, the FA has got a real problem on its hands because they just simply weren't equipped to deal with the amount of infringements we had in Austria. So something's got to change. And I just can't imagine the drivers are going to be the ones to be making the change somehow.
No, absolutely. No holding back. One driver who just had it all in control back in Austria was Max Verstappen, our reigning world champion, current championship leader. The stats are ridiculous. He'd be winning the Constructors' Championship as well if he was a one-car team. Can you look past him this weekend? Is it still his for the taking?
Absolutely. He's just been monumental this season. The Red Bull car is obviously head and shoulders above the rest, but as a driver, I mean, he's also doing the job. There's been things that can put him off and have put off pretty much everyone else in the field, including his teammate a few times. But whether it rains, whether there's safety cars, red flags, qualifying reliability issues for him, he finds a way to win, and 7 from 9 now. It'd be a huge favourite to win this one.
And we've got a few other drivers driving on home soil. Lando Norris, George Russell, Alex Albon, of course, British-born Thai driver. What are their prospects looking like in front of the home crowd? Because they say it gives you a few extra, I'm saying, tenths, hundredths. What did it give you back in the day?
A load of reliability problems. Does that count? No, the crowd they do give a huge boost. It never gave me a great result in Formula One, but I did feel energised at the weekend anyway. And those guys will be feeling exactly the same. George Russell will obviously be a front runner. If Hamilton could be there as well, you'd expect George to be right there with him. And they were both double podium in Barcelona. They could be there again. Lando Norris at McLaren was a star last time out. Ended up 4th after penalties in Austria. Had upgrades. And again, he'll be hoping to take advantage of that. Whether he can get a podium or not, I'm not sure. But certainly a well into the top 10. And Alex Albon, been really impressed with recently. Only just missed out on points in Austria. But considering he's in a Williams, they're a team that have stepped up remarkably in the last year. And again, for him, he'll be aiming for points. I remember being here a couple of years ago when George Russell was the man in the Williams, getting it into Q3, being in the top 10, and the roar of the crowd was something else. So that's the sort of thing he'll be aiming for.
Plenty to look out for here in Formula One, but of course there's so much sport going on at the moment. We've got the Ashes, we've got Wimbledon. Any little Palmer predictions when it comes to cricket and tennis?
Blimey. England to win the Ashes comfortably. After the controversial opening that I was barely across in Austria. But good to see it's not just Formula One caught in the controversy last weekend. You know what? I've been so busy this year that I'm not even right on top of the tennis. But maybe Alcaraz to win in the men's, and the women's, Britain's Katie Bolter.
Okay.
As a long shot. There you go.
I love it. Formula One pundit turned multi-sport journalist.
That's my expertise really shining through. But you're working at Wimbledon. Maybe you should be doing the tennis predictions.
Well, I think you can't look past Djokovic, I think, for the men's. And then for the women's, I want to say Sabalenka. I'm actually not sure because we're recording this now. I'm not across the scores. So she's
been knocked out.
Imagine. There you go. There's the headline for you. So much to look out for across the weekend. We're out of time here in the F1 paddock, but we'll be back tomorrow when you can catch all of the sessions on the BBC Sport website. And then on Sunday, you can hear the race in full on BBC Sounds and the BBC Sport website again. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.